Today we are going to see the first unit in Civics, which is the Indian Constitution. Synopsis of the lesson. In this session, we are going to see the following topics. The first one is what is civics, why study civics, then introduction part. Next, why does a country need a constitution? Next, the constitution serves several purposes. Finally, we are going to see the Indian Constitution. First, we have to know what is civics. Civics is the study of how government decisions or public decisions are made. In other words, it is the study of public policy issues that impact the public. It is the study of the rights and responsibilities of citizens. So, what is civics? It is the study of how public decisions are made, issues that are important to the public, and the rights and responsibilities of citizens. What is civics? The study of the rights and duties of citizenship. What does it mean to be a citizen? Being a member of a country. Why study civics? To discover how our government works and the processes it uses to make decisions that affect citizens, to identify and recognize one's own beliefs and values concerning how we participate in society. The third point, to examine the challenges that active citizenship presents when members of a community have different points of view. And the fourth point is that to develop critical thinking with regards to what it means to you to be an active citizen. In this chapter, we are going to begin with football, a game many of you have probably heard of or even played. As the name suggests, this is a game that involves the player's feet. According to the rules of football, if the ball touches the arm of any player except the goalkeeper, then this is considered a foul. So, if players start holding the football in their hands and passing it around, then they are not playing football anymore. Similarly, other games such as hockey or cricket also have rules according to which they are played. Each of these rules helps define the game and helps us distinguish one game from another. As these are fundamental to the game, we can also call them the constitutive rules of the game. Like these games, a society also has constitutive rules that make it what it is and differentiate it from other kinds of societies. In large societies in which different communities of people live together, these rules are formulated through consensus. Here, consensus means agreement, and in modern countries, this consensus is usually available in written form. A written document in which we find such rules is called a constitution. So what is meant by constitution? A written document in which we find such rules is called a constitution. So, what basically a constitution does is, it explains us what is right and what is wrong. It helps us to understand what we should do and what are the things we must follow. To make it simple, if we talk about any game, let's say if we talk about football, and if I play football with hand, will it be okay? It won't be, because the rules of the game explain that if you catch the ball by hand, it would be considered as a foul. Similarly, if you are going to the school, you have to be there in the school dress. If you are writing the exam, you have to answer only those questions that have been asked in the question paper. You cannot take any question and write any answer, that you won't score for that. So, those are certain rules that have been defined for certain things. And similarly, for a country which is as big as India and any other nation, when we talk about, there is a requirement for the rules to be followed. Next, we are going to see some key terms: democracy, socialism, secularism. So, democracy means it is a form of government in which the rulers are elected by the people. Next, socialism. Socialism is a theory or system of social organization in which all property is owned by the community and each person contributes and receives according to their ability and needs. Then secularism means the principle of separation of the state from religious institutions. The Constitution of India is the longest written constitution in the world. It is a set of rules by which the government rules our country. It is the supreme law of the land. It came into effect on 26th January 1950. Our constitution is based on the principles of democracy, socialism and secularism. So here, democracy means it is a form of government in which the rulers are elected by the people. Socialism means it is a theory or system of social organization in which all property is owned by the community and each person contributes and receives according to their ability and needs. Secularism means the principle of separation of the state from religious institutions. So, Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar is known as the father of Indian Constitution. Next, we are going to learn about why does a country need a constitution. All democratic countries are likely to have a constitution, but on the other hand, it is not necessary that all countries that have a constitution are democratic. Let me explain this. All democratic nations have a constitution. That is the first statement. That is correct. But this does not imply that all nations which have a constitution must be democratic. There could be some nations which have a constitution but are not democratic. But all the democratic nations of the world will definitely have a constitution. I hope you are clear. Again, I will explain. All democratic nations have a constitution, right? So that is the first statement. That is the correct statement. But this does not imply that all nations which have a constitution must be democratic. There could be some nations which have a constitution but are not democratic, but all the democratic nations of the world will definitely have a constitution. The constitution serves several purposes as listed below. A constitution lays out certain ideals. Here, ideals means principles that form the basis of the kind of country that we as citizens aspire to live. Here, aspire means aim or want. It tells us about the fundamental nature of our country. Next purpose is that it helps serve as a set of rules and principles that all persons in a country can agree upon. The next purpose is that it tells the way in which people want the country to be governed. It not only tells the type of government but also on certain ideals. So what is meant by ideals? Ideals means principles. It not only tells the type of government but also on certain ideals or principles. For example, Nepal had monarchy until February 2005, where all powers rested with the king. First, we have to know what is meant by monarchy. Monarchy means rule by a single person, a king or queen, who is the permanent head of state. So, Nepal had monarchy until February 2005, where all powers rested with the king. A people's movement in Nepal fought for several decades to establish democracy. So what is meant by democracy? Democracy is a form of government in which the rulers are elected by the people. So a people's movement in Nepal fought for several decades to establish democracy, which means it is a form of government in which the rulers are elected by the people. People of Nepal adopted a new constitution for the country in 2015. In the 1990 Constitution of Nepal, the executive powers of the kingdom were entirely in the hands of the king and the Council of Ministers. However, as per the Constitution of Nepal, drafted in 2015, the executive powers of Nepal shifted to the hands of the Council of Ministers headed by the Prime Minister. The 2015 Constitution followed the democratic form of government compared to the 1990 Constitution, which was a monarchy form of government. This helped the people come out of the old constitution to a better form of government that reflected the ideals of the people and was successful in keeping up the spirits and unity of the people. Now, let's see why did the people of Nepal want a change? Because monarchy does not reflect the ideals of the country that the people want Nepal to be. Here, ideals means principles. So, monarchy does not reflect the principles of the country that the people want Nepal to be. Next, let's see about second purpose of the constitution. In a democracy, leaders exercise their power responsibly on the behalf of the people. It defines country's political system. In other words, to define the nature of a country's political system, for example, Nepal's earlier constitution stated that the country was to be ruled by the king and his council of ministers. In countries that have adopted a democratic form of government or polity, the constitution plays a crucial role. Here, crucial means critical role. It prescribes. Here, prescribes means suggest or recommends certain important guidelines that govern decision making within these societies. People choose leaders to exercise powers in democracy. There is possibilities of misusing these powers. In democratic societies, constitution often lays down rules that guard the people against the misuse of authority of our leaders. It lays certain important guidelines that govern decision-making processes. If there were no restrictions on the power of elected representatives, there could be a chance for the leaders to misuse the powers given to them. They might turn out to be corrupt or could be over-indulgent. Here, over-indulgent means excessive in the affairs of the people, using their power, which could cause unrest and dissatisfaction among the people. Therefore, the Indian Constitution provides safeguards against this misuse of power. The Constitution lays down rules and principles that guard the citizens against any such misuse. Next, let's see about third purpose of the Constitution. A Constitution plays an important function in a democracy to ensure that a dominant group does not use its power against any person, group, organization, etc. Constitution prevents tyranny or domination by the majority of a minority. Here, tyranny means the cruel and unjust use of power or authority. The Indian Constitution guarantees the right to equality to all citizens and says that no citizen can be discriminated. Here, discriminated means differentiated on the basis of religion, caste, gender, race, etc. It avoids inter-community domination. Here, inter-community domination means domination of majority over minority. In other words, one community dominating another. It also avoids intra-community domination. Here, intra-community domination means members of one community dominating others within the same community. Again, I will explain. It avoids inter-community domination. So, what is meant by inter-community domination? Inter-community domination means domination of majority over minority. In other words, one community dominating another. It also avoids intra-community domination. Intra-community domination means members of one community dominating others within the same community. Constitution helps to protect us from adverse effect. Here, adverse means unfavorable effect that we might face in the long run. For example, when people decide to replace democracy with dictatorship, due to the bad politics of political parties. First, we have to know what is meant by dictatorship. A dictatorship is a form of government where one person or political party has the power to do whatever they want. The ruler is called a dictator. So, when people decide to replace democracy with dictatorship due to the bad politics of political parties, this will have adverse effect on the rights of the people. Hence, Constitution does not allow to overthrow the provisions that guarantee rights of citizens and protect their freedom. Now, let's see 3 significant reasons why we need a constitution. In democratic societies, the constitution often lays down rules that guard against the misuse of authority by our political leaders. The second reason is that the constitution ensures that a dominant group does not use its power against less powerful people or groups. The third reason is that the Constitution helps to protect us against decisions that could have an adverse effect on the larger principles that the country believes in. Next, we are going to learn about a democratic country need a constitution because it lays out the important guidelines that govern decision making within the various societies of the country. It lays down the ideals, which means principles that form the basis of the kind of country that its citizens aspire to live in. It serves as a set of rules and principles as the basis by which the country has to be governed. So what is meant by ideal? Ideal means a goal or a principle in its most excellent or perfect form. It provides rules to safeguard the interest of minorities and prevent any kind of domination by the majority on minorities. It lays down rules that guard against the misuse of power by any politician or leader. It also provides rights to its citizens and protects their freedom. First, we have to know what is meant by Indian national movement. The Indian national movement emerged in 19th century India and saw thousands of men and women coming together to fight British rule. This culminated, which means this ended in India's independence in 1947. Next, we are going to learn about the Indian Constitution. By the beginning of the 20th century, the Indian national movement had been active in the struggle for independence from British rule for several decades. During the freedom struggle, the nationalists devoted a great deal of time to imagining and planning what a free India would be like. When the Constitution was being written, India was going through a turmoil. Here, turmoil means a state of great disturbance or confusion because of partition of India and Pakistan. The final document reflects a respect for maintaining diversity with preserving national unity along with eradication. Here, eradication means put an end to of poverty through socio-economic reforms. Here, socio-economic means it is a branch of economics and a social science that focuses on the relationship between social behavior and economics. It studies how economic activity affects and is shaped by social processes. So, socio-economic reforms means improvements. In 1946, the Indian Constitutional Assembly was constituted. The members of the assembly were only Indians. The assembly was given the responsibility of drafting Indian Constitution. Baba Sahib Bhimrao Ambedkar was the head of the drafting committee. The 308 members of the assembly signed two-hand written documents which were in Hindi and English. On 26 January 1950 at 10:30 a.m., the Constitution of India was incorporated by the Republic of India. A group of 300 people became members of the Constituent Assembly in 1946 and had written India's Constitution. While writing the Indian Constitution, these members kept in mind the different communities who speak different languages, belong to different religions, and have distinct cultures. Here, distinct means different cultures. Here, religion means the belief in and worship of a superhuman controlling power, especially a personal god or gods. Culture means the ideas, customs, and social behavior of a particular people or society. I have enclosed the classwork instructions in the PDF. Kindly refer it. So now, we have reached the end of this session. Thank you.